Good morning, everybody, and welcome wherever you are to the information session for the Chartered Manager Degree Apprenticeship at the University of Lincoln, at the Lincoln International Business School. My name is Martin Hickerton. I'm an associate professor here at the business school, and I'm delighted to welcome you along. We've had many people start with us on our apprenticeship journey at the University of Lincoln, and if it's something you're thinking about or as an employer you're looking to do, then you're very welcome today. Joining me today are a couple of colleagues. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Alex Altersky.
Morning, everyone. Nice to see you all, and look forward to telling you all about the Chartered Manager Degree Apprenticeship.
Thank you, Alex. Good morning. And also joining us is one of our current students, Anne-Marie Smith.
Hi, everyone. I'm a third year degree student, and I work at the University of Lincoln as a senior manager for Board of Examiners, and I usually look after exams as well.
It's always really good to have a real life student with us. So Anne-Marie, it's a pleasure to have you here today. And there are actually some people in the background who you can't see. So joining us and operating slides is our colleague Tars, who's marketing and key account manager, and our fabulous administrator, Anna, who is with us, who's going to be able to field any questions that are a bit too detailed if they come through on an admin level. So without any further ado, I'd like to take you through some slides. We think it'd be a good way to take you through the detail. And what we'll do is open up the chat. If you're following us live, please ask any questions as we go through. It's the best way to learn. If we're going to cover it, I'll tell you. If it's something we haven't thought of, it's great to know that as well. And as we go through, fire up any comments or questions. We'll fill them at the end if we don't pick them up as we go through the slides. Thank you very much. So if we kick off then, so why are you here? You might be here because you are actually somebody who is looking to study yourself, and you're looking to take that moment of graduation in a few months' time. And in terms of your own current journey, you're thinking, what's next for me as a manager? You might actually be here in terms of being an employer, and it might be something that you're looking to do to arrange for your staff the opportunity to study, develop. We know that it really helps with retention and engagement for staff to be involved in apprenticeships. It's a proven statistic. You might be here as part of a network, so you might be in a professional body. It's something that is really developed over the last year in terms of apprenticeships being a prime mode for learning and development. Or you might be here because you're still working at home like we are, and it's something to do. For whatever reason, you're very welcome. As we go through today, we're going to look at an agenda which is broadly speaking as follows. So what is an apprenticeship? Because the Chartered Manager Degree Apprenticeship in itself is a standard from the Chartered Managers Institute, which we work towards. We're going to talk about the degree apprenticeship itself, and there's actually a Bachelor of Arts Honours degree programme that underpins it. And that's where Dr. Alex will talk through the information as programme leader. Really importantly, I want to talk to you about eligibility and next steps. And we will talk about some of the requirements as an employer or as a student upon you as an apprentice. And clearly, we want to make sure there's opportunities for further discussion and any questions. And if you are watching this back and you're not currently watching it live, please feel free to email through any questions you may have to cmda@lincoln.ac.uk. So what is an apprenticeship? Well, there's a kind of an image, I think, maybe still lasting around, that it's for people right at the beginning of their career. It's maybe getting into your first trade. And whilst that is very much true in some instances, they're much broader. So apprenticeships are now educational programs for career development. And as long as you've got that mix of classroom and on-the-job training, then actually that's an apprenticeship. And you can be a manager, you can be a senior manager, you can be a director, a chief exec. And actually it doesn't have to be a specific trade. What we're talking about here today is more the leadership and management approach. And so as a university, we've committed to developing not only our own, but other staff that we're aware of through apprenticeship programs. And the Chartered Manager is our flagship program. It's been really popular. We've had well over 100 people go through it, and there's been some great success stories. Despite the numbers have gone through it, it's not just about the numbers. What we like to remind everybody that it's really good for the individual and the employer. So people who are on the course often say to us, I'm operating in a different way. I'm thinking about things at a more strategic level. I'm doing things in a way which I never would have dreamt of doing a few years ago. I've got new theories, I've got new models, and I've got new knowledge, skills, and behaviours that allow me to be effective in the workplace. But employers also feedback that they see that change in their staff. They see managers taking on more confidence, having tough conversations with credibility, and learning things which actually benefit across the whole university. So the bullseye there is to remind us that actually it's good for everybody. It really hits home in terms of that learning and development. And there have been some really good success stories. So we've had a local deputy chief executive recruited to the role of a national chief executive of a charity based in London. We recently had a branch manager for one of our employers promoted to commercial manager of the organisation. We've had a lot of employers feedback that some of the projects that the students have been doing have led to really large savings across a network. And we have an endpoint assessment on all apprenticeships, and that's actually given some really positive outcomes for all of those who've been involved in those quite significant projects. So hopefully giving you a flavour there of reasons why it's good to study or have your staff studying as an apprentice. So this is the process. There's 4 stages to every apprenticeship. Now, whether that's as a nail technician, a mechanic, a manager, it's the same 4 things. So firstly, it's enrolment, and it's enrolment to get the right people at the right stage of their career onto the right course. So that's identifying the apprentice. This is what we're doing today, really. It's the start of it, but there is a recruitment process. I'll talk through that. When you start, when you're enrolled, there's a welcome session at the university, there's an induction, and we have to also look at things like functional skills to make sure that we are pitching the learning at the appropriate level. There are some other things involved. I'll outline this later. Clearly, the bulk of an apprenticeship is in the learning. You get regular visits from an assessor. You're very well supported. There's remote and there's face-to-face teaching. At the minute, the face-to-face is very difficult because of the pandemic. And truthfully, over the last year, we've opted to go virtual, I think, for almost all university courses. We've got really adept at running that. So we've got some really good systems, which Alex can talk about later. But it's not all about the university impact. It's actually about how you take that face-to-face or virtual learning and put it into practice in the workplace. And some of that is whilst you work. And some of that is actually whilst you work and you're mindfully learning still. So you're not flat out working. We'll go through what the 20% off the job training means later. But it's a really important concept. And you have regular reviews. Now, we've compressed a lot of time into that one phrase there, learning. At the end of what is in this instance 3 years, you go to what's called the gateway. That's where your assessor and your manager, because it's a partnership approach, say you're ready to go for an endpoint assessment. Or actually had people go for endpoint assessments for the first time recently. It's a submission of your portfolio of evidence that you've established and built up over your time as an apprentice. It's those knowledge, skills, and behaviours and the evidence that supports what you're looking to put forward to that endpoint assessment. It could be interviews and discussions, but you'll be taken through that every step of the way. And in terms of the next steps post the endpoint assessment, it's probably worth outlining the content of the course. If we have the next slide, please, Taz. Always joke like the Chris Whitty style here. It's 36 months, so it is the full 3 years, and there is an endpoint assessment on top of that. So it normally ends up being 3 years and a little bit, but of course you're studying for a full degree whilst working, so that's about as quick as it could possibly be. We call it level 6 degree apprenticeship, which means that it is a full degree. The title of which is professional practice in leadership and management, and of course it's delivered through the highly qualified staff at the Lincoln International Business School. So there'll be lecturers, tutors, and managers who'll be able to talk to you. And it's really interesting because you actually get the level 5 CMI qualification as well. So it's an apprenticeship, it's the level 5 CMI, and it's the BA Honours. And so it's a triple whammy course, as we like to call it. But to take you through the content of the modules, I'm going to drop out of the broadcast for a couple of moments. I'm going to pass across to Alex, who's going to take you through the modules, and I'll pick up again when we get to the 20%. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Martin. Thanks for that. Yeah, can I have the next slide? Thank you very much. Yeah, so this is an overview of the actual degree that underpins the degree apprenticeship, which is the BA Honours in Professional Practice in Leadership and Management. So basically, we can see here that there's actually 11 modules. There's 4 modules per year in the first and second year, and then 3 modules in the third year. So the first year represents the top row. So each module is worth 30 credits of the degree. And how a module works then, basically the module lasts 10 weeks. In the first week of the 10 weeks, there's a day of teaching. Now that day of teaching, pandemic allowing, would be at the university. And it's basically a whistle-stop tour through the module, group activities, etc., etc. So you've got a good overview of the module. And now at the moment, those teaching days are actually happening online, and a mixture of synchronous and asynchronous teaching, but when allowed, we'll get those back to being face-to-face. Then basically there's 9 weeks of the module left, and there's a weekly live webinar that happens in the module. So that live webinar is roughly an hour long per week, and in that hour a bit of teaching happens, but also guidance and sort of what you should be working on, the sort of things you should be looking at. Now, all of these modules are very work-based focused, and our degree was specifically written to hit and link to the Chartered Manager Degree Apprenticeship standard. So every module is not only asking you to actually produce assessments linked to the academic learning outcomes of that module, but it's actually also asking you to produce and gather together work-based evidence and try out work-based projects that are actually showing that you're developing your knowledge, skills, and behaviours as a manager linked to the CMDA standard. So the beauty really of this is that you're studying a degree, but it's a really work-based focus, and at the same time as studying that degree, you're actually trying things out in the workplace, you're learning new things, you're implementing new things, you're reflecting on those things, and that's all going into your portfolio that you're actually putting together in terms of the degree apprenticeship. So in terms of the degree, as I said, there's 4 modules in the first year, 4 in the second, and 4 in the third. And you can see the different sort of topics that we've got. We start off with a personal effectiveness module. We look at managing and developing people, finance, communication. Then into the second year, we're on to digital business. We're on to global and local markets, which is like a marketing module. We're on to stakeholder management in developing collaborative relationships, project management. And finally, in the third year, we're going up to that sort of more strategic sort of stage of learning. So we're looking at effective leadership, organizational strategy, and managing change. And then finally, the final module is the negotiated work-based project. And this is a double module. It's worth 60 credits. Now, the great thing about this module is this is the capstone piece of work that you do for your degree, but also for your degree apprenticeship. Within this, you normally there's a dissertation at the end of a degree, but for ours, we do this work-based project. So this work-based project is focused on something, some issue or something that needs to be done within your workplace that you as a manager, you're actually going to do, and then you're going to write up in a work-based project report, you're going to present, you're going to do business cases. So it's got to be a live project. And the reason it says negotiated is that we work with your employer and you work with your employer, and you look at something in the workplace that needs to be looked at, that needs to be made more efficient, more effective. You look at an issue, you maybe look at something that needs fixing, and you actually do that and then write it up. So it's real work that you're doing there, and you're writing up and as part of the degree apprenticeship. So what happens with these modules is you have a module tutor, and that is an expert from the business school who's an expert in one of the different topics, and they'll be teaching you about that topic, but they'll also be relating it to your workplace. But you also have another member of staff from the university called a portfolio support tutor, and that portfolio support tutor really stays with you for the whole degree apprenticeship and helps you to understand and gather your portfolio evidence that you're doing for the degree apprenticeship to make sure that you're able to implement the things in the workplace and get evidence of those things. So what happens is you do your degree work, you hand it in, it's marked academically. At the end of the degree, your degree modules are all added together, and you get a mark out of 100, and it ends up with either first, a 2-1, a 2-2, etc. as a degree. But also, as you're going through the degree, you're gathering portfolio evidence, and you're actually doing this almost automatically because it's built into our degree modules and our degree assessments. So the gathering of your portfolio evidence is reviewed on a quarterly basis, so 4 times a year, by your portfolio support tutor and also your work-based mentor, so someone from your actual employer who's helping you from that side as well. So you're slowly going along, completing the degree, but also building your portfolio evidence as you go, really. And then the beauty of that last module is you're putting together this module, you're actually doing something in the workplace, and then this forms part of the endpoint assessment that you have to do for the degree apprenticeship. So because for the actual degree you've got to do a presentation, a work-based project report, you also have to do that for the endpoint assessment of the degree apprenticeship. So we're actually getting you to do that work as part of the degree. You're kind of not doing it twice, if that makes sense. So I think one of the big strengths of this degree is that it was written specifically to hit the CMDA standard. And so it's all linked in, and all your tutors understand this, your portfolio support tutor does. So we don't see the degree and the apprenticeship as 2 separate things. We see them all linked together, and that's how we deliver the course. Can I have the next slide, please? So, a mixture of blended and distance learning. We do, although obviously this course is delivered, quite a lot at a distance, we do understand that actually having that human contact or that interaction is really important. So when allowed, we have those days on campus, which is basically 1 day per module. Even when we don't have them, we still have those days where we get together even online and we form communities of practice, if that makes sense. So this isn't the type of sort of distance learning course where it's just right, here's the course, get on with it, hand it in 10 weeks. No, we've got those sort of touch points at the beginning and those weekly touch points, and then those individual tutorials and things like that you can have with your portfolio support tutor. So you get an induction, and that's an on-campus induction when possible due to the pandemic. You get your weekly learning and teaching and community discussion. So there's times that you can sort of always pop in sort of on a weekly basis and get some sort of live interaction, if that makes sense. And then we've got plenty of tutor support on the program itself. Each module has its own tutor, and then your portfolio support tutor, who is that person that sort of stays with you throughout the whole apprenticeship journey and then helps you get ready for endpoint assessment at the end. In terms of the online resources, we use our virtual learning environment, Blackboard, which is all set up nicely to be able to deliver these courses with sort of online live teaching session software called Collaborate, with access to videos, Panopto, with access to our extensive sort of online library. We have a specific online librarian as well, and we make sure that all our resources are available online as well. We have study skills and research methods frameworks and tutorials and all of those things. So we do understand that you may come to us having not studied at university level before, and we give you all the resources to look at all of those things as well. All our modules are really work-based focused. So although, obviously in a module we can look at best case examples from other organizations, we can look at, the Googles of this, what the Googles of this world are doing. Actually, all of our work is focused on our own organizations and implementing that sort of work-based learning in terms of how we understand our learning and how we implement it in the workplace. And that's really important. So we have guest lecturers and discussions. We have a very close relationship with the Chartered Management Institute, that's the awarding body for this apprenticeship. We have Chartered Management Institute Challenge Days, where we have professionals from the CMI come in and give us advice and help on some of our modules and some of the things that we're doing. So it's a really sort of interactive, although it is blended, because we understand that in the workplace, you know, you all have busy jobs, you have busy time doing things, and so you've got the mixture of sort of these sort of interactive online things, these actual face-to-face things. Now, with our online sessions, we do record them all because we understand that at the last minute something might come at work, you know, you need to deal with something. We do record them all, but we do ask that as much as possible that students and apprentices can get to these sessions live for that interaction, but we do understand that at times you can't, and they're all recorded so you can look back at the recordings. Thank you. Next slide, please. So in terms of our assessment then, every module is assessed in a similar way with a portfolio approach. And basically within that assessment, there's normally sort of 3 major parts to it. There's normally a discussion type written report that you need to produce to show that you've engaged with the knowledge around the subject matter. There's normally like an application or practical type part to the assessment where you need to show that you've actually applied these things in the workplace and you've done some sort of work-based project linked to actually applying the things that you've been learning about in the workplace, and you're writing that up. And then there's normally a reflective element where you can really show how you've developed your learning and understanding of these things through gaining the knowledge and actually applying this in a practical way. And you can also talk about in this reflective element how you've developed as a manager and how you are going to further develop as a manager linked to these things as well. And in actually putting together these portfolio assessments, what you're actually automatically doing is gathering the portfolio evidence linked to the CMDA standard. So if we look at the Managing Developing People module, which is the second module in the first year, it links to H in the CMDA standard. And within H in the CMDA standard, you need to show evidence that you've helped with a recruitment campaign, let's say. So actually in that module, it's asking you to actually practically write about what you've done in terms of helping him with the recruitment campaign and the things that have gone well and the things that haven't gone so well and what you would do differently, etc., etc. And in writing that up in the actual module assessment, what you're doing is you're actually also writing up portfolio evidence to go for your degree apprenticeship portfolio. So those two things are sort of you're almost doing two things in one, if that makes sense. So again, that's the advantage of us having written our degree specifically to hit the degree apprenticeship standard. So we basically have formative assessment within every module. You get a chance to hand in draft work, and you get ongoing formative assessment from your portfolio support tutor who'll be looking at the evidence that you're gathering for the degree apprenticeship and giving you advice as to whether this is hitting the standard or what sort of things you might need to do. And then you get summative assessment at the end of each module. So at the end of each module, it is marked and you're given guidance of what you can do differently and how you can improve for the next one. And then also the portfolio itself, through when we're guiding you through the endpoint assessment process, we're actually helping you to get that summative assessment for the end of the portfolio to ensure that you're ready for the endpoint assessment process. And we have had a number of students go through endpoint assessment now, the first ones really, because the course started in 2017 with it being a 3-year course, you know, and they've done incredibly well at their endpoint assessments, with many of them getting distinctions on the degree apprenticeship. So in terms of the final project then that you're doing, that long module at the end, the negotiated work-based project, what you've actually got to produce is a business case. So that's to show that this is a work-based project, why it needs to be done, what the needs are, what the drivers are in your workplace for this project to be done. A business-based report where you're writing up what you actually did in that work-based project, how it went, what the outcomes were, did you hit your aims and objectives, what you would do differently. And also you are presenting this professionally, you're presenting this as part of that assessment. And all of those things are actually requirements. So you're doing all this for the degree, but all of those things are actually requirements for the endpoint assessment for the degree apprenticeship. So when you get to that endpoint assessment, you're going to be really ready to sort of show and almost show off everything that you've achieved during that work, that end project, because you've already written it up for the degree, you've already sort of practiced doing presentations for it and all of those things. So that's how that all works with assessment. Next slide, please. So, although this is a degree apprenticeship, you are actually, and you are classed as apprentices, you will also be classed as a student of the University of Lincoln. And as such, being a student, you'd be similar to any other student on campus or off campus, of course. Any of our undergraduate students, you know, so you're able to get all the same benefits that any other student would, student discount, use of the library, all of those things, use of our support and student services and wellbeing services and all of those. And then also, of course, you will end up with a degree, the BA Honours in Professional Practice in Leadership and Management. And, you know, at the end of the course, you will get to graduate with that degree. And as the photographs there, you'll be able to throw the funny hats up in the air, just like any other student. Health and safety regulations, of course, we need to be adhered to when throwing hats in the air, of course. So, you know, it's really exciting because you're sort of doing this work-based learning where you're implementing things and you're learning things, and you're actually implementing the workplace and you're gaining a degree, but you're also a student and having all of those benefits as well, and coming out and being able to graduate at the end. And so it's rolling all of these things into one. And as Martin said earlier, also we have the CMI level 5 qualification rolled into this as well. So at the same time as actually doing your degree, achieving the degree apprenticeship, you'll also be achieving the CMI level 5 outcomes as well, which again is all rolled in. Thanks very much.
Fantastic, Alex. Thank you so much. And I'm sure everyone who's watched that will be really appreciating all the information you've given. It gives a really good setting to how the course, how the apprenticeship works. So fantastic. Alex is going to stay with us in behind the scenes until the end of the broadcast, and we'll bring him back on for any questions that may come up. So I'm going to take you through the next couple of minutes with some more information about apprenticeship delivery. So that will then lead us up to our chat with Anne-Marie about experience as a student. So I referenced earlier, and Alex has referenced as well, there's this idea of off-the-job training where you've actually got time when you're in work, but you're not working per se, you're working mindfully, you're working to learn. You might actually have time from your employer given over to being in a learning experience. But there's also the on-the-job experience. It doesn't stop the fact that you're an apprentice when you're not actually in a lecture, for example. So actually, whilst you are being employed, perhaps in the same role you've always done, because you're an apprentice, the training undertaken, the work that you're doing means that your entire working life is under that banner. You're being an apprentice. And next slide, please, Taz. The 20% itself is worth highlighting though. So there's some things we'll practically do. So the module attendance you have at the university is part of that off-the-job training. The contact you have with your tutor, the webinars, the self-study, any reflective study that you do is also part of that 20%. And on the next slide, we've got an interesting infographic which will show you a bit more information about it. And again, on please start. Thank you. So there's some different things here. It's not quite nice to have it as a visual reference. So we've got taught sessions. Anything that's taught to you, a seminar or a workshop, that's part of the 20%. Even being shadowed or mentored by experienced staff, that's part of your 20%. Anything online, conferences that you go to. Perhaps you're running a team meeting for the first time in a different way because you've mindfully absorbed some of the theories from the course. You've learned something from Alex that you put into practice. If you're doing that in a self-reflective way, if you're doing things differently and learning, it's part of the 20% off the job training. So just a useful little graphic there to share that. If we go to the next slide, it was worth reiterating some of the actual requirements. So 20% off the job, we've talked about that. That's really important. But there are other things as well. So there's commitment statements. There's 3 actually. So as an apprentice, as the student, you're committing to attend and to study. As an employer, you're committing to paying that apprentice their wages and giving them appropriate time off in whatever format that might be. And it's not hard and fast, but that time and space to learn and grow. And as a university, we provide that training, the support and the guidance. All of that comes together under an apprenticeship agreement. It's a tripartite agreement. You're also heavily supported, as Alex has referenced. You get a work-based mentor and you get that portfolio support all the way through to the endpoint assessment. At this point, it's not a moment too soon. We'd like to bring on Anne-Marie. Hi, Anne-Marie. If you'd like just to take your mute button off, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. So firstly, would you like just to tell everyone a little bit more about your role at the moment? You mentioned it's at the university. Fill us in about your day-to-day and if you have management responsibilities.
Yeah, so I've worked for the university for about 20 years and I've been a manager for about 8 years. I work centrally in student administration. I line manage about 8 members of staff on a day-to-day basis, and they look after the College of Science students and their whole student journey. I also manage invigilators when we're doing exams as well. So I have about 100 part-time members of staff that invigilate our exams that I manage too on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. So a very important job, helps keep the university running smoothly. And as well as being a key worker at the university, you're also an apprentice. So tell us about why you wanted to get onto the Chartered Manager Degree Apprenticeship course. What attracted you to it?
So like I said, I've been a manager for about 8 years, and what I wanted was a bit more career development. I wanted to be able to use what I know and develop it further. I wanted to become a better manager. And for me, this course was ideal because it meant that I could still have my full-time job, my life with my children at home, but still study. And I love the fact that it's that I'm working towards 3 different qualifications. So for me, that was key. And the fact that it's so flexible that I get my day off a week. My managers are great. They give me a Thursday off every week to be able to study. So being able to study alongside working full-time and home life, it's been really flexible and adaptable. And the support you get from the university has been outstanding. I've really felt, even though I'm a staff member, I also now feel like I'm a student and part of the community as well. So for me, it was all about doing this alongside working, but also then being able to get a qualification and develop. So hopefully career development can be the next step once I finish.
So it's getting that qualification alongside working full time. So that's a real key message. What impact has studying and being an apprentice had on your day-to-day working life? Has it changed the way you work alongside things you've learned?
Yeah, I believe so. Lots of people I work with have said I've changed in the last 3 years as a manager. I've been able to react better to situations. Obviously with COVID and all the change that's been around that, the fact that you have to be flexible as a manager and just react to change constantly. I found that the skills I learned in the first sort of couple of years of studying has really helped with me managing my team. But the fact that it's all remote learning now, so all my team are at home, the same as myself, it's been able to sort of find that balance, but also use what I've learned to be able to support them so that they are developing as staff as well.
Absolutely. And you mentioned there you're working at home, so presumably the learning has just continued, but rather than being in those face-to-face lectures, it's all gone virtually. You learn through the internet effectively at the minute.
Yep, so we learn through Collaborate, through Blackboard, which again, really simple, straightforward. I'm not very techy as a person, but I managed to be able to get through it all. The fact that it's gone online, the support is still there. There's still somebody at the end of a call or an email to be able to support you, and you're still getting the learning. And if you can't attend, you can watch the recordings back. So it's been great, but I haven't noticed any difference from that sort of side of it. As a manager, obviously I've been busier. I've changed everything from our own working abilities to going online for everything that we do. So it's been a massive change. But like I say, because the course is so flexible, it's been fine. You know, if it's times when there's been busy months, then you make it up months later down the line, then there is that flexibility to keep on top of things.
If somebody's watching this, maybe live, or they're watching it on playback, what would be your advice to them if they're considering studying the CMDA?
Absolutely, I would say go for it. It's a brilliant way of studying alongside working and home life as well, the balance is great. And the fact that you're going to get 3 degrees at the end of it, for me, it was a no-brainer. It was absolutely something that I needed to do.
Well, I think you've obviously balanced it really well, because it's not been an easy year, has it? And I know you will have been mega busy, not only work-wise, but with the studies and home life as well. So well done. And thank you very much for that feedback. That's so useful to hear. I'm sure it'll make Alex very pleased as well. It's a positive affirmation. So thanks very much. For the next couple of slides, we're going to take you through, for anyone who's thinking of taking that next step, what the next steps actually are, and then we'll stay on screen and we'll pick up any questions that come through, and if not, we'll all wave goodbye happily in a second. But in terms of the eligibility and application process, so this is just at a very high level. So you need to be in a relevant work role. So we're not too explicit about what that is, and it's not about the experience you have, but it's something in which you're going to find that this standard not only benefits you, but helps develop the knowledge, skills and behaviours to be even more productive in your role. There are requirements around English and Maths level 2, that's GCSE or equivalent. And if you're in a leadership role, typically it'll be 30 hours a week employment contract. But if that's not you, don't worry. The admin team, Anna and the guys, are very adept at seeing what we can do to help people. Because if it's the right thing at the right time, then we'd love to help you. Taking this on a little bit further then, the process at a very high level is there's a statement of intent. So if you want to join, Anne-Marie will probably remember this, you write a statement of why you want to do it and why you're going to be a good student. But there's also an academic interview, and that'll be probably with Alex or another member of the faculty, in terms of just making sure you are doing it for the right reasons. As we said before, it's about not just about whether you're eligible, it's whether it's suitable for you in your situation. The role and your home and work life, and it's a considered decision. It's not easy, but it is a great opportunity. And because it's a degree apprenticeship refers to the fact there's a recommendation from the employer as well. It's that partnership, and I'm sorry to say it, there's a lot of regulatory documents that sit around as well. Some from the university, some from the SFA or the IFA, the apprenticeship bodies, etc. That's a given, but we can take you through it every step of the way. But as I say, suitability really is the key for us if this is of interest. Okay, thank you, Taz. So all that remains for me to do in terms of slides is to give you the heads up on what timings are happening and when. So if you're interested, email us. Email cmda@lincoln.ac.uk. Anna and the team will be on standby to furnish you with the paperwork and let you know next steps in that bit more detail. You return those application packs, and it is to the same address by no later than the 12th of July. However, what I would say is that it's a very popular course. We've got a lot of applications coming through. The sooner you can do that, the better. It really helps get people through in a timely fashion. There's a bit of a gap then, and that gap is because we do admission interviews. That's with, as I said, with Alex, but also we go through the paperwork. There's a lot of behind the scenes getting you on the systems, university enrollment. You are a full student. You've got to get your student discount cards, etc. All those things in place. It takes a bit of time, but that'll be August, September. And the cohort starts week commencing 25th of October 2021, which sounds a long way away, but in reality, it will come around dead quick. But obviously, first, we're not expecting you to apply straight away. If you're ready, that's great. But, think, chat, ask any questions. We're going to give it a moment. I'm not sure we've had any questions come through on the live chat. I'm just checking. So I think we may actually be in a situation where we can wrap up. If there's any that come through, please do let us know. We haven't had any come through. So all that remains for me to do is say thank you very much. Alex, Anne-Marie, it's been a pleasure to present with you again, albeit remotely. And we look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.